Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sadhuryam Karavavahai Tevinavadi Titamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti. Now one more question carried over from yesterday. How does grace work in our lives? Question number 2 is connected to it. Even after we have experienced something that is miraculous or life-changing, why are we not able to integrate it into our daily lives? B. Can we practice without fully believing? Let me start with the last question. Can we practice without fully believing? We have to look at practice, we have to look at belief. Two things, and try to look at them together. You know, there are some religious teachings. We are on the spiritual side now, but still, they are interconnected. There are some religious teachings which say that if you have to practice, you have to first believe. There are some religious teachings. It's okay, that is their way of looking at things, which is like, if you want to be a practicing some religion, particular religion, then you have to first accept the fact that there is only one God and so is a messenger of that God. You have to first accept that. So the morning, when the call for prayer goes, which we hear every day at 5:30, the sentence that is used is, I bear witness that there is only one God. Not God, there is only one Allah. And Muhammad is his messenger. I bear witness that there is only one God and he is his messenger. This is repeated 5 times a day. If you want to say that I am a practicing Muslim, first before the practice you have to believe that it is so. How do I know? Which means they say it is written in the sacred book, or it is so said by the Prophet, so you have to believe it. So if you want to belong to that particular religion, first you have to believe and accept. Otherwise you cannot. Whatever you may be, Sufi, not Sufi, whatever you are, you have to first believe. And when you say there is only one God, which is Allah, that means you don't believe in any other God. Clear. And you cannot call it by any name other than Allah. Clear. And there is many prophets, but this is the last prophet. Seal of the prophets. After this you cannot do anything. No more prophets. It's finished, sealed and done with. And you have a book called the Word of God. You have to believe it. So that religion is based on belief before practice. Now you come to the Upanishadic teachings, which perhaps are much more ancient. Upanishad says, first ask question, find out, then practice. See the difference between the two. Now you can accept anything, it depends on you. So most religions with one book and one teacher, a prophet, want belief first and practice later. It's your choice. And some teachings of ancient religions say first you find out, then you accept or reject as you like. Now it's your choice which you want to choose. Right? Whether that finally that is true or not, that is not the problem. The problem is when we start, do we accept and practice or practice? And that is the question. One of the reasons I moved out from the religion in which I belong to towards the Upanishadic teachings is because I said I am not going to believe unless I find out. Now anybody who says that is supposed to be an apostate. The punishment for apostasy is death. Like you can believe it or you don't. So I'm constantly living in the danger of death. Not that the soul can be killed. So, this is how it is. So I moved out because I said, let me think. I don't want to put my brain in cold storage. Let me think. Let me figure out. So I moved. It's your choice. You can move or you can stay. I'm not saying one should move. Please understand me. So, there is an Upanishad, the ancient Upanishad, called the Kena Upanishad. It is one of the principal Upanishads. Even the beginning, it starts by asking the question, who are you? First I have to know who I am before I go and find out who that is and so on. Where did life originate from? What is the first thought that comes from the mind? Tinesitam padati prasitam mana jana prana prasama praiti yukta tinesitam vacham imamatanti. Question, who? What? So, and Sankhya philosophy. In Sankhya, which was discovered by the great Kapila, who Maharshi Kapila is so important that in the Gita, Krishna, when he describes his glories and says among the immovables I am the Himalayas and among the mountains I am Meru and so on, says among the Munis I am Kapila. I'm just saying how important Kapila is. The whole Sankhya philosophy was created by Kapila. There is no God in Sankhya. There is no concept of Ishvara. There is Purusha and there is Prakriti. And everything is interwoven. The person who attains Kaivalya is one who separates himself from Prakriti and realizes that he is pure Purusha, the spirit. The Jains have no concept of a creator God. There is no Ishvara. They believe that the souls are any number of souls which exist from the beginning. The souls are conditioned by impurities and imperfections. Nirvana is to decondition the soul and free it from the impurities and conditions so that it restored to its pure state. This is Nirvana, there is no God in here in between. Of course, human beings like to worship, so they worship the Tirthankaras, Mahavira and so on. It's built in, we like to worship. Even somebody is powerful, we like to worship. So now this question has kind of broken a hornet's nest. So these are different concepts about belief and practice. However, when we say I believe, it also implies that I don't know about a certain thing. I have a hypothesis. And before I know, I need to have a hypothesis before I can move forward. This is faith. Suppose there is a Pythagoras theorem. The theorem is a hypothesis. The hypothesis is that the square of the hypotenuse and the square of the base, square of the base and square of the altitude will give you the square of the hypotenuse. This is Pythagoras' theorem. We don't know if it will give, but it is a hypothesis. Probably Pythagoras knew, which is why the hypothesis is given. Then you do the experiment of drawing the figure and you realize, yes, it is so. So many beliefs and faiths are hypotheses given to us by people who have touched something. And the hypothesis is according to their relationship with it and how they have understood it. And you have to work on the hypothesis if you really want to understand it. If you simply want to accept it on faith, that's okay, that's your choice. But there are serious people who want to know, who want to say, let me work and experience it myself before I realize what it is. In such cases, practice comes before faith. But faith here is a hypothesis, a belief that perhaps it is so, but not because thousands of people say it is so. That's like democracy. Thousands of people vote, then you win. It need not necessarily be that these thousands are right. There may be one person who is right, who may not have. So, it's not a majority question. It's a question of looking and examining whether you need faith first or work towards it. If you think all this speculation is kind of confusing us, let me have faith, that's also fine if it is giving you peace of mind. However, that peace of mind can be broken by another problem sometimes. Now, let's say the teachings of the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Gita, they have said something. People have experienced it, the Rishis have experienced it. And they say, now you do this before you touch it. This is sadhana. How you approach, how you move, until you touch that which has been touched by them. In this case, practice is important. Some kind of faith that maybe they are right should be there. Otherwise you cannot practice. If you are totally saying, no, it's not possible. Because among thousands of people who practice, perhaps one goes close. And among thousands who go close, maybe one finds it. This is the words of Krishna in the Gita. He said, among thousands of people, one turns around and says, let me find the truth. And among thousands such who say, let me find the truth, one goes on the path. And among thousands who go on the path, one reaches the goal. Not my words. I tend to agree with it, of course. But so Swami Vivekananda said, most people who don't have a personal experience of God are actually atheists. They don't believe. They think they know, but they don't. Unfortunately. So when you don't know, what can you do? You can only have faith. Because everybody cannot be wrong. Now, the importance of the ancient Vedic teachings is that they agree that there may be a truth, there may be different ways of finding it, depending upon the nature and the intellectual capacity of the person. There is one truth, but there may be different ways of finding it, different ways of defining it, which boils down to the fact that nobody can define the Supreme Being. Because if you define using our language, which is finite, and using our mind, which is finite, and can the finite define the infinite? If the finite can define the infinite, it is not infinite. So is there a way out? Yes, when the finite becomes absolutely silent, understanding the fact that it cannot define, and remain open, Then perhaps one understands what is infinite. So this is my take, roughly, on can we practice without fully believing. But ultimately you should believe in yourself. That must be there. Yes, I can practice if others have done and move forward. That has to be there. Because what happens is otherwise you believe in something and then that something is gone and all our beliefs are shattered and then we are left in a limbo. That why don't you keep those beliefs suspended as, suspend your judgments. There must be something towards which people have worked all their lives. Can we move towards it? What shall we practice to get there? Now this is food for thought. Think for yourself. Don't leave your thinking to me. Because true spiritual experience is not against thinking. True spiritual experience is not against logic. True spiritual experience is not against a rational mind. True spiritual experience, being truth, cannot be disproved by anything. So it's very steady up there. Nobody can do anything about it. So, he who has. Now, even after having experienced miraculous or life-changing, why are we not able to integrate into our lives? If one had an experience which is life-changing, why we continue to lead the same kind of life? That is the question. This is a very individual question, because each person has to search to find out why one is not able to integrate it. There is no general statement in this. Because some people do integrate, some don't. So there must be some reason behind it. One may be that one doesn't want to break a pattern. Maybe. And one is very comfortable in the pattern created by oneself. One doesn't want to break it. Because to walk on this path, according to the Upanishads, is like Shurasya Dhara, walking on the edge of a razor. Now that is a dangerous thing to do, so it's better to stay with all that is okay. God is there, supreme, fine, but I am here and I don't want to break out. That may be one of the reasons why we don't change. And it may be also that we are stuck in our comfort roles. We don't want to break it. And the first question, which I'm dealing with last, is how does grace work? To me, it's a very important question, because I would have been nowhere and nothing if Babaji had not bestowed his grace on me. For me, it's a very intimate and personal question about grace. I don't think I would have understood a thing. Now, to get that grace, first we should understand our limitations, our pride, our pretensions. All these have to be chopped off. When these are chopped off, then the vessel is open for grace. Till then, even if the grace comes, it can't enter. It's not as if there is no grace. There is always grace. It's like the beautiful breeze that blows outside, but our windows and doors are closed. But nobody can say when the breeze is going to come in, right? Can we dictate when the breeze is going to come? But can we leave our windows and doors open because it may come in at some point? We can't dictate, oh, the grace must come. It's not in our hands, but it's in our hands to leave our windows and doors open so that when it blows in with its fragrance. That is grace. It's like a gentle breeze. It's like the definition of mercy according to Portia in Shakespeare. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It blesses him that takes and him that gives. It's like that. But we shut ourselves up. We don't open ourselves up. We don't clear our minds. We keep them still so full of muck that when the grace comes, there is no way to flow. So, the first requisite for the grace to flow is to open our minds and to understand our limitations and to know that we are nothing. So difficult to say that, no? We are nothing. Because we know little, we think we know everything. This is the problem. So, that's what grace is about. According to me, there may be many other understandings about grace, but from my side, this is all I know. And I know that without grace, I would have gone nowhere, as I know. Why you closed it? There's a question which says, reading the scriptural books gives an insight into this world, but this knowledge also creates illusion. Now, I don't understand this question. What does this mean? Reading the scriptural books gives us an insight into this world or the next? Reading the scriptural books gives an insight into this world. I think by insight you mean you were able to look beyond the appearances. Is that what you mean? Understand? Oh, you are the one who... understand? Okay, this is what you meant by insight. Okay. But this knowledge also creates illusion, which means what? But this is what... No, but if you have an insight, then why would it... Yeah, so therefore, theoretically we may understand, we may have an insight, theoretically, and say that this world does not last forever, it is only here for a few days, then it is gone. And is there a reality which is always there? It's all theoretical. So, practically, do we really experience it? No, we don't. When you look at this world, do you see that it is an illusion? Do you really see it? You take it as granted, but don't you see it? That something which does not last forever cannot be a reality. This much? It's here today, okay. But is it there tomorrow? We don't know. We think that we are going to live for 90 years, but we don't know, tomorrow we may die. Huh? So, we live in illusions actually. We draw our own concepts and then we live in it. The whole teaching is how to break free of it. And the first step in breaking free of it is to understand that maybe our thinking is wrong. Maybe. Perhaps we are thinking in a completely wrong manner. At least you should know the theory before you go into the practice. Otherwise, what are you practicing? I think it is better for us to thoroughly examine the theory before doing the practice. Otherwise, you start practicing and then you don't know what it is all about and you end up giving it up. I know people who have been doing practices and then finally they give it up and they don't know, nothing has happened. So, it is good to have a theoretical understanding of why we are practicing. What are we aiming at before we practice? In fact, in the ancient days, if you go to a teacher and ask for a kriya or some practice, he would let you stay with him and teach him for another 20 years before he says, this is the practical step. Nowadays, the practical is given first because you can sell it for money. You don't know why you are doing it. Yeah, some comfort you get, little bit happiness, but stress relief or something like that. But you really don't know why you're doing it. So, my understanding of this is that you should have a theoretical insight first, and then you should get into the practice, or at least side by side. I hope I got your question. Who wrote this question? She is the youngest Kriyavan here. It's 2 years since she is practicing Kriya. 1 year. Then something is happening in your head. The question is, did a mom help you or dad help you? No. The question is, sir, what do you try to say when you say that we can find the truth when our mind is silent? This is what I'm trying to say. That our mind constantly chatters. From the time we are born, that is as we know it, before we are born also, from the time we are born till the time we die, the mind is constantly chattering. You can't find a single point when it is quiet. When you are asleep, of course, you don't know. Maybe it's still chattering, you don't know. But it's constantly chattering. In this chatter, how can one hear the voice of the silence? We wonder, is there a contradiction? Is there a voice for silence? In fact, there is a book called The Voice of the Silence, written by H.P. Blavatsky, who founded the Theosophical Society. I want to ask you a question. Have you heard the sound of the tree when there is no breeze? No? Go near the tree even when there is no breeze. You will hear many sounds, crickets, birds, haven't you? And even when they are silent, even when the birds have stopped singing at night, the crickets are singing. So which means what? There are two kinds of silences. One is the silence when you shut off all noise, physical silence. And there's another silence when the mind is not chattering anymore. That silence has a voice of its own. And that's the voice of the divine. And when that silence is attained, you can be silent in the midst of Connaught Place. Or in the midst of a cricket match, when everybody shouts, "Hey!" Silence. So when I say, your mind is silent and you can find the truth, it means when we first step understand that it is this constant mind that is speaking, which is chattering, which is hiding very effectively the truth which rests in silence. So to look for that silent mind when everything is at rest, it can happen only when we have discovered that the truth that we are seeking is not far away somewhere, but it is right here. If it is far away there where Deepak Ratan is sitting with the camera and I am here, I need to walk towards it. Every effort is a breaking of silence. Any effort. Because effort implies what? Conflict. Suppose it is here. Do I have to stretch myself? Do I have to grasp or acquire? Acquiring is noise. Do I have to? If I say it is here, then I stop all acquiring, all acquisition, all movement, all groping, all then everything is quiet, I'm not doing anything. Then in that silence, you discover the truth. You do kriya, okay, still you're doing something. Now what happens is when your mind is fully concentrated on something, the number of thoughts become less because you're concentrating, your mind is fixed on one thought. A time comes when even that disappears. So does that mean that one becomes unconscious? No. On the other hand, one is fully conscious but silent. Absolutely quiet. You know why the mind moves? I think now I'm happy, silent. And then the mind says, I need that. I want that. The moment starts. When you decide, when you realize that all you want is right here and nowhere to find, then what happens? Where does it move? It can't move. When it can't move, there is silence. In that silence, you see what it is. Don't even want to call it truth. You see whatever it is in its true essence. Well, I didn't expect you to ask this. I have proof that Kriya works. Or maybe her brain is like that too. I don't know. There's much more to it, but at the moment we need to move. Many questions. I don't want anyone to say who wrote this, it's okay. But the question is, I always find myself lacking devotion and shraddha in comparison with other devotees. My mind always questions and alters. Kindly help. Not a question. It says kindly help. First of all, please, you don't have to compare yourself with anybody. You be yourself. You don't have to, oh, somebody has more devotion, I have nothing. You don't have to compare yourself with anybody. You stay as you are. You don't have to worry about what others. This is a kind of inner spiritual competition. That guy is very devotional, I am not, I have to work towards it. Don't worry about that. First thing. The other is, my mind always questions and falters. It's okay to question. There's nothing wrong with that. Just because somebody else is not questioning, it doesn't mean that you should question. Everybody has questions. Some have less, some have more. Some don't want to speak out, some speak out. Everybody has questions. So, you ask, kindly help. I have a suggestion which can help you. Which is, whenever you have a question in your mind on the spiritual path, instead of getting disturbed and taken off the track, keep the question alive and say, I will sort it out in time, but I'm not going to move out of my spiritual path. What happens normally, why we are worried is because when we are moving quietly on the spirit, some question comes. And what do? We abandon the search. I'm saying let the question stay, but don't abandon the search. Think that I am a finite brain, my mind is finite. I probably cannot solve this right now. Let me keep it. Maybe after having some experiences, I can sort it out. But don't stop movement on the path. Stick to it. Don't let go. Because at every question, if you let go, then you can never walk on the path. But I wouldn't discourage questions. I would say put them there. It's like when you sit down to meditate, keep your questions out. You come in, you put your shoes out, right? Along with the shoes, put all these things there. Your ego also. Actually, you can find out the ego of a person from the shoes. Some people wear very decorative shoes. Is what Sherlock Holmes taught Watson. So, keep everything out, meditate. When you go back, you can pick up your list and try to work on it. This is how I can help you. Don't be afraid of questions. Anything that has happened in this universe has happened because people questioned and asked, how? Why? Otherwise you'll still be thinking the earth is flat. So there is no harm in questioning. In fact, the Upanishadic way of spiritual knowledge says always question. There is no need to accept question. But when you are practicing on the spiritual path, let that question not interfere with your path. Keep it. Maybe after 2 years you'll get an answer to it. Now in 2 years you have given up your spiritual practice. You've lost. Keep this in mind. Somebody says, Guruji, you have mentioned in the beginning itself that there are no political questions. But this is a spiritual political question. What kind of thing is that? Spiritual political question. Kadiravan has sent this question from Namakkal. Now what is that question? Should I deal with it or leave it? I don't know whether there is any spiritual political question. But okay, let me read anyway what he has written. Most of the current politicians, as if before it was different, don't understand what is real spirituality. Do we? People who are sincere and understand actual spirituality are not getting an opportunity to become politicians. Why this gap? Now the last sentence is pretty, please bless to bridge the gap. First of all, let us not believe that all politicians don't understand real spirit. Don't let us generalize, because there are good and bad in everything, like we have. It's not like that. How much do we understand? Forget the politicians. But I know what your concern is, I can understand. And your next question is, people who understand spirituality are not get. The problem is, when you understand, you don't want to go into politics. Who would want to do it? I mean, why would one do it? I mean, for what? Because most politics is, however good or bad, basically it's power. So if you have touched the source of all power, why would you want to go and have power anywhere? The whole desire for that is gone. So that is why this gap is there. However, since you are a young man, and if you think you are spiritual, and if you don't, you are sure you won't lose your spiritual capacity if you wade into politics, please go into politics. We need it. It's the need of the hour. There are good people, young people. There's no point in sitting in an armchair and criticizing the politician. Why don't you do something? I personally don't criticize. They have their own compulsions. Everybody is not bad. It's not like that. We shouldn't label everybody like that. This is like saying all lawyers are liars. I mean, they're doing their profession. So, don't think this way. You think that if you feel you're spiritual, I mean, in the sense that I'm not making fun of you. If you really feel that I have good intentions, I'm a spiritual person, there is no harm in your stepping into politics. You're still young. And Tamil Nadu politics is in a mess. I hope Charubala is not here. She gone back? Oh, sorry. It's a big mess, so good people should step into it. Atmiya? I'm not so sure. This way I didn't want political questions, but well, I know one thing for sure. He's a good man, okay. He's an actor, fine. He's a famous person, fine. Personally, I know him. He's a good fellow. He practices Kriya, additional qualification. However, it does not mean that he would become a successful politician, because it's a different game altogether. It's very difficult for people like that to get into politics. Anyway, it's a good experiment. Let's see what happens. You should support him, actually. Since I am talking to her, I need to tell you that she comes from a very old ruling family from Pudukkottai. Now, what's so important about Pudukkottai is the great Avaduta, Sadashiva Brahmendra, used to keep in touch with the rulers of Pudukkottai. Have you heard of Sadashiva Brahmendra? I mean, there are many kritis written by him, beautiful kritis. He was a naked man who would become a Paramahamsa and went around in ecstasy, singing. And one of his beautiful lyrics in classical music, South Indian classical music, is Pibore Ramarasa. And he has also written a beautiful commentary on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali called Yoga Sudhakara, which was the first attempt to bridge the gap between yoga and Vedanta, theoretically. So, in the palace in Pudukkottai, they still have a container which contains the dust of the feet of Sadashiva Brahmendra, which I think is opened once in a while for what, every day? Some days it is open for public. They have kept some dust from its feet. So since we are at Pudukkottai, I am just telling you that. I think Swami Vivekananda also went and stayed in Pudukkottai. Not Pudukkottai. Ramnad, correct. Anyway, next question. Kadiravan? Go help Rajini. There's a question from Rahul, I'll answer it later. Oh my God, there are so many questions. Worrying for everything has become our habit. It causes a big hindrance in meditation and spiritual progress. How can we overcome it? Practical question from Mr. Saxena. That's true. Worrying is, not for me, worrying has become a big problem for many people. The reason is, let me explain to you from a different angle. The only thing that we have in our hands, actually, is the present. What we have done or somebody has done to us in the past, we have no way of correcting it. We cannot go back to the past and tinker with it. Can we? Future, we have no idea. Because it is what is projected according to our thoughts, that this could be the future. So what do we really know? The present. Now, I don't know if we really know it, but at least comparatively, the closest we are is to the present, now. So if we can leave that past and leave that future alone and work with what we have in our hands at present, then you can in some way sort out this question of worry, because the worry is usually about what happened in the past or what is going to happen in the future. So try to stay in the present. So with that, what will happen? The forgiveness also comes into the mind. Suppose somebody has done a lot of harm to us in the past. That person is not doing any harm now, it was done in the past. That person might have already died and gone, but I am still stuck with that. Right? I can't move out of it. And I am constantly worrying about it. Future. I think I might lose my job. There's no reason why you should think, but I think I might lose my job. Think of the worst scenario. Say, yes, I have lost my job. Now what? These are some of the practical ways of how to sort it out. From the point of view of a spiritual life, if you understand that the source of all energy is here, you are part of the infinite supreme reality, all the energy that is in this universe, there is a part of it also in you. Ask for help from that energy which is inside us. and don't worry about it. There's no point in worrying, because worrying is not going to help. First understand this, it is not going to help. Instead of worrying, think. Thinking is not the same as worrying. Thinking means constructing ways and means to get out of your problem. Worrying means keep on thinking that you are going to fail. Two things. So there is no harm in thinking, but don't get into this worry business, because it never ends if you don't end it yourself. So you say, from today onwards, I might think and plan and speculate about the future. I'm not going to worry about it. And the past, I can do nothing about it, so I'm going to leave it alone. When I walk out of here, I'm free and fresh. I'm dealing with today and today's experiences. If you deal properly with today, the future will take care of itself. I know it's not easy, but it is possible. So, that is my suggestion. Here is a question. Where did it come into my hand from? What is the difference between mind? It's a long question. I don't know if we can sort it out, but I'll try my best. What is the difference between mind, intelligence, and ego? Are they all not part of the mind itself? What intelligence is being asked to be stimulated while we chant the Gayatri mantra? The second one is, of course, a practical question from Mr. Angsuman Modi. Where is Mr. You're smiling, so I thought it might be. What is the difference between, you're right in a way, mind, intelligence, ego, they're all part of the thought process. And mind is the thought process. You cannot think of your mind without thought, can you? No. So ego is also thought. Intelligence is also thought. It's all part of your thought process. So there is one thing called the thought process, which we call mind because it is thinking, thought. It may be negative, it may be positive, still it is part of the mind. That much is clear. Now during Gayatri mantra, the last sentence of the Gayatri mantra says, Dhiyo yohana prachodayat. May my intelligence be stimulated, illumined. Now here intelligence means dhiyo. It's not mentioned as buddhi, dhiyo, which means may my thought process become illuminated so that I can understand things in their proper perspective. That's what it is. Some question I'm not taking up because they are quite Small question. A lot of times we feel a lot of grief when family members suffer. Does Kriya help mitigate this grief? If your family members are suffering and if you feel grief, don't mitigate it. It's a good thing, even with Kriya. Try to help them so that they don't suffer. That is the way. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of grief. It's wonderful to have some grief. Even great sannyasis have some grief sometimes. When Swami Vivekananda was wandering in Maharashtra, one day he met somebody who told him that his best friend who used to be in college with him died. Now you can imagine Swami Vivekananda, the wandering monk, having only a kamandalu and a stick those days. He burst out crying. This guy said, "What is this? I thought you were a sannyasin. Why are you crying?" I said, "Your friend has died." He said, "Well, I worked for so many years, do you think to make my heart stone? Do you think my heart doesn't melt for others?" So there's nothing wrong with having a little grief when people are suffering. Try to mitigate the grief. Consider the grief to be your own. Don't think that people who are callous and don't care about other people's grief and suffering are spiritually advanced. Maybe they're in some kind of a stupor or something. Now here is a question. If I answer this question, it is basically very speculative. I have no way of proving the answers to you. It's about whether when the soul dies, what happens. And, I can say it, but you have to take my word for it. There's nothing beyond that. I can't prove it to you. The question he asks is, it's a long question, does the Atman or the soul take rebirth immediately after leaving its present body? Or wait for some appropriate time to adopt a new body? If it takes time, then where does the soul reside during the intervening period? First question. If I answer this question, for you it is merely a speculative answer, because how do I prove this to you, where the soul resides? And I of course know that it is so, but how do I explain this? It is true that the soul that leaves the body does not immediately come back to a body. That time, then what will happen is, when one dies, immediately somebody is born. It's not like that. The soul that leaves the body, depending upon its actions, enjoys or suffers. And after its quota is over, not eternally, after its quota is over, it comes back to a body. So there is an interim period. It comes back to a body based on how its spiritual evolution can be furthered depending on the conditions. That's what it does. And during the intervening period, where does it reside? I can't say Bombay, Delhi and so on. During the intervening period, it has its own realm where it stays. If it is a good soul which has done good actions, it enjoys itself like you enjoy in Sushupti, deep sleep, unaware of anything. And then when it is time to awaken, it is woken up and comes back. It wakes up and comes back. Swarga is, the word Swarga means bliss, happiness. And it is similar to Sushupti, where you enjoy yourself. You have beautiful dreams. And depending upon your good acts in one life, that much of time you enjoy. and then you're back again for more perfection. Unfortunately, we come for more perfection and end up gathering more imperfections. This is the problem. Part 2. Does the soul of a male being enter a male body? Or can it enter a female body and vice versa? The soul has no sex. Sex is only for the physical body. So one time it may be male, another time it may have a female body. Now, I can't prove any of these things to you. Huh? Now here there is a problem. In the worst circumstances, when a human being has no human qualities and only animal qualities, has lived such a life, there is a narrow possibility of coming back in an animal body. However, even people who come back in a male body may have male bodies, but the minds are like animals. So what do you do? I know good dogs and bad human beings. The animals evolve, their soul evolves and evolves and evolves and then comes. Anyway, I can't prove this, so this is why this question is a little bit speculative. I'm telling you based on what I know. Okay? We think that it's a terrible thing to be born as an animal, but many of us are actually animals. I mean, we have a human face. You know, like in Delhi, if you go to Nizamuddin, this railway station, behind is the tomb of Nizamuddin, a Sufi saint. It was his practice. He never went to a mosque except on Friday afternoon. There was a congregation. Rest of the time he used to sit and enjoy the singing and ghazals. So on Friday, when he went to the mosque, he used to ask his assistant to tie a blindfold in his eyes, not the assistant's eyes, his eyes, and lead him to the mosque for prayer. So one day the assistant got very curious. He said, "Why are you doing this, tying this blindfold and going to the mosque?" He said, "You want to see?" She said, "Yes, if you're willing to do it." He said, "Okay, now you tie the blindfold." So he tied him and he took him for the prayer. Because you can't walk with a blindfold. This guy went and sat in the mosque and he was so shocked because through the blindfold he could see something very strange. He looked around. There were lots of human beings sitting down for prayer, but their faces, some of them look like wolves, some of them look like wild boars, some of them look like, all kinds of things. And he said, "What is this? The bodies are human and the faces are animals." He said, "This is why I wear it, because I am looking for a human disciple." So it's not necessarily that you should be born as an animal. I have a dog at home, it's a very good dog. I think next life he may become a human being. Good human being. Now I'm going to stop because this is a 2-page question, sir. Neil. What is the point of living, sir, this life, worldly life, considering that the world is illusory, Maya? Should everyone who can go to the Himalayas and I can't read them. focus only on spiritual perfection, truth, moksha. First of all, if the whole world is an illusion, what about the Himalayas? Is it not there in this world? 2 years ago, there was a big scare. Everybody said, not everybody, some mad fellows said, the world is going to end on the 12th of January or something like that. It's some prediction, some nonsense. So the world was going to end that day. So many people approached me and said, can we come to Madanapalli? I said, look, if the world is going to end, Madanapalli is also going to not that it's going to end tomorrow, but so if it is a fact that the world is an illusion, actually the word Maya has been a little bit misunderstood. The word Maya actually means not that it is an illusion, but it is not permanent. It's not permanent. We think it's existing forever, but it doesn't. Not only the physical world, but also our ideas, our mind, everything. They are here today and gone tomorrow, so they are in a flux. And what we are seeking is something that is not caught up in the flux, which is always there. Right? And it so happens that to find that out, we have to be here, then only you can find out. So there is no escape. While living here, we should figure out how to be free of it. You cannot escape from it. There is no way. Himalayas also. I know many people who run tea shops and do smuggling drugs in the Himalayas. They haven't become perfect. What you mean is, since the world is not permanent, it's an illusion, isn't it better to have spiritual perfection? This is the essence of your question. Yes, of course. It is. But is it so easy to, you can't run away. You can try to achieve spiritual evolution while still being here. There is no escape. Even the sannyasin, who has given up everything, has to depend on food for his existence till he becomes free. Who will supply the food? The householder, the bhiksha. So he also is in some way caught up in this illusion. So to free yourself from this misunderstood, lopsided understanding of the world is important. But to free yourself, you cannot go anywhere and escape and free yourself. You have to free yourself while you are still here. Of course, the Himalayas are beautiful places to go. I understand that. I've also been. I love the Himalayas. But then you can also do it anywhere, in Gurgaon also. Here there are many pathways, not one. So, but Neil, I really appreciate that you're thinking about this at this age. Keep that thought alive. While I'm in this world, I'm doing my things, but how to clear this and get out of this? How to be free? Keep that alive in your mind. Why I'm saying this is whenever I see young people asking such questions, I feel very excited because they are the future of the world. Our hair has become grey now. A few more years and we are walking off. What about our young people, see? So I'm really happy that to Satsang there are many young people. When I say young, anybody younger than me, okay? But he is very young. How is consciousness related to the soul? Are they different entities? Normally when we say consciousness, we're talking about the soul. But since two words are used, consciousness and soul, it means a soul is that which animates a human body, which is inside the physical body, sthula sharira. And the consciousness because of which it is aware is what you mean by consciousness. Because this, now again this is very speculative, I can't prove this to you in any way. Just as you have a physical body, inside the physical body, fitted perfectly, is a subtle body. So when we normally say soul, we think of that, not the ultimate consciousness. The ultimate consciousness animates the subtle body, which is called the Linga Sharira, the Shushma Sharira, which is inside the Sthula, which is the physical body. Beyond that, in a subtler state, is something called the Karana Sharira. This is very technical, which means there are different layers of existence, and each of these layers of existence together form the human being. And all these layers are animated by a consciousness and awareness. That is consciousness. While these, even in the subtle spheres, there is dead matter not only here but also in the subtler spheres. I have a question, not me, that if we close our eyes for meditation or kriya, we get darkness, black color. Not everybody, okay? But people say that black or darkness is negative. Please explain. Black and darkness are not negative. First, let me start from that point. In fact, all the light that comes from the darkness only. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. First there is that dark, but that darkness is not the absence of light, it is the absence of movement. If darkness is negative, why would we call one of the important manifestations of divinity as Krishna? Krishna, the word Krishna in Sanskrit means dark. So why is Krishna dark if it is negative? So somewhere along the line we have associated dark with negative and white with positive. I think it's apartheid in its worst form. Sometimes darkness is good. The goddess Kali is supposed to be dark. Shyam is dark, Shyama is dark, so why is it negative? And it's from darkness, it's in when there is no light that we sleep. You switch off the lights when you sleep. Are you going into negativity when you sleep? Are you going to rejuvenate your system? So this is a misunderstanding. Take it off your mind. Darkness is not negative. Very often it is in this darkness that the light shines. If there is no darkness, you cannot differentiate between light and darkness. There are two sides of the same thing. Just as there is day and night, there is light and darkness. There is nothing negative or positive about it. Sometimes we think it's negative because of our fear of the dark. When it's dark, the dacoits come. We are taught from childhood, when it is dark, the ghosts are peeping down from. It's because we frighten the child, hey, don't cry, sleep quickly, it is dark, something is coming. And it remains in the mind till you grow up. You're afraid of the dark. So actually, intrinsically, there is no negativity in darkness. And intrinsically, that there is light need not indicate that it is positive. That is a philosophical expression saying, take me from darkness into light, which is not physical light. Please, when you say tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, take me from darkness into, it doesn't mean physical darkness to light. It means take me from the ignorance, darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge. That's what is meant. So darkness is not negative. Dark hair looks so nice. I think Delhi has, there are people from all over. I was about to say Delhi has lots of people who think a lot of things, so many questions. How does prayer work? How does prayer work? Is there any one way to pray that may be better than other ways? Or no matter how we pray, prayer works anyhow. You have concluded that it works, okay. Don't you know that sometimes prayers don't work too? Okay, how does the prayer work? Prayer usually comes from somebody's heart when you find you're powerless. I can do nothing about it. So I pray, oh divine being, please help me out. This is the genesis of prayer. Now, on the other hand, if you think that there is a supreme being who knows everything, do you need to remind him that I need help? Him or her, whatever, where you want to look at it. If the supreme being is omniscient, omnipresent and omnipotent, do we need to pray and ask for help? Doesn't it know when to help us and what to do? But the human mind in its weak state, when it is suffering, it tries to pray. Please help. It's coming from the heart. Help me out. The thing is, that divine being to whom you pray is sitting inside your heart as the Antaryami. And it knows everything that is happening. According to me, the best prayer is, you know everything, do what is best for me. According to me, that is the best prayer. Because sometimes we pray for things which we think are good for us, but actually are not. We think, oh, I prayed for this, I didn't get it. And you curse God for that. Perhaps you would have been worse if you got it. You don't know it now. So the best way, according to me, is to say, the Supreme Being resides in my heart as the Antaryami. You know everything. Do what is good for me. It's a very effective prayer. Very often it works. Well, if it doesn't work, maybe that's what it has to be. Pray in a temple or anywhere. What do we do basically? We put our hands here. It's an instinct. So it's here. Pray, ask for help, say, Red Cross. If I don't get Red Cross, my Blue Cross is also okay. And we get past the illusions of this three-dimensional world. Tall order. How can we transcend the three-dimensional world to the fourth-dimensional world while still living in our physical body? How do you transcend if you are not living in your physical body? Tell me that first. The question springs from the fact that you are living in a physical body, right? Now you want to ascend. While still means you are still there anyway in the physical body. There is no still there. Now the three-dimensional world and the fourth-dimensional world and all these things are a little bit complicated. Let us say that we actually live in a three-dimensional world because we are dependent on our sense organs. if we can activate those organs of perception which we talked about today, other than the physical 5 organs of sensation, then there is a chance that you might be able to explore what is not in the 3-dimensional. Let's not say 4-dimensional. What's not in the 3-dimensional world. And for that, there is a practical necessity of activating those organs of perception, instruments of perception, which can break free of the 3-dimensional world. And all the sadhana is intended for that, and sadhana is meant for those who are in the physical body now. Not still, but always are. I think we should stop now. It's 5 o'clock. You can go have a cup of tea and then come back at 6 for meditation. What is the best way to do the Guru Mantra is what I explained during the Kriya. I already told you, didn't I? Think of the Paduka in the lotus in the heart and touch and chant Om Hrim Shri Guru Pyo.